My name is Victoria Sterling and I'm 42 years old. Before we go on, show your love by subscribing and saying hi in the comments. Share your location too, we love hearing from you. Let's get back to the story. On the morning of my birthday, I walked into my own boardroom to find my husband Ezekiel, my 2 adult children, Tyler and Simone, and my company's entire executive team sitting around the mahogany table I'd custom ordered 15 years ago. The same table where I'd signed deals worth millions. The air smelled like expensive cologne and betrayal. "Happy birthday, baby," Ezekiel said, sliding a manila envelope across the polished wood. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We need to talk about your retirement." My heart hammered against my ribs. 23 years of marriage, and I knew that tone. That was his lawyer voice. The voice he used when he was about to take something that wasn't his. I picked up the envelope with trembling fingers. Divorce papers. The second set of documents made my blood run cold, a petition to remove me as CEO of Sterling Media Group, the empire I'd built from a single radio station I'd purchased with my grandmother's life insurance money. "What is this?" My voice came out steady, but my palms were sweating. Tyler leaned forward, his designer suit probably costing more than my first car payment. "Mom, we're staging an intervention. You've been unstable. Erratic business decisions. We have documented proof." Documented proof. I repeated slowly. Simone wouldn't even look at me. My baby girl, who I'd carried for 9 months, raised alone while Ezekiel was building his career, sat there examining her $1,000 manicure like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. The boardroom suddenly felt suffocating. The walls seemed to close in, and I could hear my pulse thundering in my ears. Let me take you back 25 years. I was 17, pregnant, and terrified. My mama had just passed from cancer, leaving me with nothing but her old BIC and $23,000 in life insurance money. Ezekiel was 19, charming, and promised me the world. "Victoria, I'm gonna make you a queen," he'd whispered, holding my swollen belly. "Our kid's gonna have everything we didn't." I believed him. God, how I believed him. While Ezekiel enrolled in community college, I worked 3 jobs, waitressing at a diner from 6 to 2, cleaning offices from 3 to 9, and doing people's hair in our cramped apartment on weekends. My feet would swell so bad I'd have to soak them in ice water. I'd fall asleep sometimes while washing dishes, fork still in my hand. Tyler was born on a Tuesday. I was back at work by Friday because we needed the money. Ezekiel said his classes were important, that he was securing our future. So I pumped milk in restaurant bathrooms, my breasts aching while I served eggs and smiled through exhaustion that felt like drowning. When Simone came 3 years later, nothing changed. Ezekiel had finished his associate degree and was working on his bachelor's. "Just a little longer, baby. My degree is our ticket out of this." Our ticket. As if he was doing the work. I remember the night everything shifted. Simone was 2 months old, crying from colic, and I was running on 40 minutes of sleep. Ezekiel came home from class, looked at the mess, dishes piled up, laundry overflowing, me walking circles with a screaming baby, and said, "Can't you keep the house together? What do you even do all day?" Something inside me crystallized. Hard. Cold. Clear. I knew then I'd have to save myself. 2 weeks after Ezekiel's comment, I bought a dying radio station with Mama's insurance money. Everyone said I was crazy. Ezekiel said I was playing businesswoman when I should be focused on our family. His mother told me I was being selfish, chasing pipe dreams while my husband was making something of himself. I didn't care. I couldn't afford to. That radio station was in the worst part of town, equipment held together with duct tape and prayers. I'd work my regular jobs, come home, feed the kids, put them to bed, then head to the station from midnight to 4 a.m. I taught myself audio engineering from library books. Learned advertising sales by calling businesses until my voice went hoarse. Ezekiel hated it. "You're never home. The kids need their mother." "The kids need to eat," I'd snap back, exhausted and irritable. "Your degree ain't paying bills yet." He'd get that wounded look, like I'd slapped him. But I noticed he never offered to skip a class to watch the kids. never volunteered to take a shift to help with finances. His education was sacred. Mine was selfish. The station started making money. Not much, just enough to hire one employee, then two. I specialized in community programming, gospel music, local news that actually mattered to black folks in our city. People started listening. Then advertisers started calling. By the time Ezekiel graduated with his bachelor's degree in business administration, my little station was turning a profit of 6 figures annually. He'd already lined up a job at a consulting firm, but when he saw my books, something shifted in his eyes. "Baby, I'm so proud of you," he said, kissing my forehead. "We should celebrate. Maybe I should come work with you instead. Help you grow this thing properly." That we should have been my first warning. Ezekiel joined Sterling Media Group. Yes, I'd named it after my maiden name, as COO. I was relieved, honestly. Exhausted from years of doing everything alone, I thought having my husband as a true partner would ease the burden. We'd be a team finally, building something together. "You handle the creative, I'll handle the business," he'd said smoothly, his MBA fresh off the wall. "That's what I'm trained for." So I let him. God forgive me, I let him in. Within 6 months, he'd restructured everything. Brought in his college buddies as consultants. Started taking meetings without me. When I questioned decisions, he'd smile, that patient smile, the one that made me feel like a child playing dress up. "Victoria, this is business strategy. Corporate structure. You're brilliant with content, but let me handle the grown-up stuff, yeah." The grown-up stuff. The company I'd built with bleeding hands and sleepless nights was somehow now beyond my understanding because I didn't have his fancy degree. But the company kept growing. We acquired 2 more stations, then 5, then launched into television. By the time Tyler was 12 and Simone was 9, Sterling Media Group was worth $8 million. We'd moved into a mini-mansion in the suburbs. Ezekiel drove a Mercedes. The kids attended private school. Everyone called us the perfect power couple. Ezekiel gave speeches about our journey, carefully editing out the parts where I'd done everything alone while he collected degrees. In his version, we'd built the empire together, 2 dreamers against the world. I started noticing things. Small things. How his name appeared first on articles about the company. How reporters would direct questions to him, even though I was CEO. How he'd answer for me, that hand on my shoulder that felt more like control than affection. "Ezekiel, why'd you tell Forbes you founded the company?" "Semantics, baby. We're a unit, right?" Tyler and Simone grew up in luxury I'd never imagined as a child. Private schools, summer camps, college funds that never felt the strain. I wanted them to have everything I didn't. I wanted them soft where I'd been hardened, confident where I'd been afraid. But somewhere along the way, they became strangers. Tyler came home from college with Ezekiel's mannerisms, that same condescending head tilt, that same dismissive wave of his hand when you said something he disagreed with. He'd majored in business like his father, joined the company at 23 with a VP title I knew he hadn't earned. "Mom, your content strategy is outdated," he'd say in meetings, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. "We need to pivot to digital streaming. Expand our demographic reach." "We serve our community," I'd respond firmly. "That's our foundation." That's limiting thinking. Dad agrees with me. Dad agrees with me. Those words became Tyler's favorite weapon. Simone was worse because the betrayal cut deeper. My baby girl, who I'd rocked through nightmares and nursed through chicken pox, now looked at me like I was an embarrassment. She joined the company too, heading marketing, spending money on brand consultants and image rehabilitation like we were Coca-Cola instead of a regional media group with deep community roots. "Mother, you can't keep wearing those outdated suits to investor meetings," she'd said once, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're the face of the company. You need to look the part." I'd glance down at my navy suit. Professional, elegant, expensive. What's wrong with what I'm wearing? Nothing, if you're going to church. But this is business. She'd exchanged a look with Ezekiel. That look. The one that said, "See. She doesn't get it." I'd given them everything, and they'd learned to despise me for it. The year before my 42nd birthday, things escalated. Ezekiel started having private dinners with board members I'd appointed, people I'd trusted, mentored, promoted. He'd come home late, smelling like whiskey and cigars, talking about company vision and succession planning. "We're not a mom-and-pop shop anymore, Victoria," he'd say, loosening his tie. "We need professional leadership. Forward-thinking leadership. I am professional leadership. I built this company 20 years ago, yes. But the market's changed. You're stuck in the past." Stuck in the past. As if respecting our roots, serving our community, maintaining the integrity that made us successful was somehow backward thinking. Tyler started questioning my decisions openly in meetings. "Why are we renewing this gospel programming block? The ratings are declining." "Because Mrs. Johnson has been with us for 18 years. She's family. This is business, not a charity." His eyes were cold, calculating. Ezekiel's eyes. Simone launched a brand refresh without my approval. New logo, new colors, new everything. When I saw the designs, my mama's name, Sterling, had been reduced to tiny print under a generic SMG logo. "You can't just erase our history," I'd said, my voice shaking. "It's not erasing, Mother. It's evolving. You should be thanking me for dragging this company into the 21st century." I started having anxiety attacks. My doctor prescribed pills I'd take in secret, sitting in my car in the parking garage, trying to remember when my family became my enemies. When my own children learned to speak to me with such contempt. Ezekiel suggested therapy. "For your stress, baby. You're not yourself lately." I went. The therapist was someone Ezekiel recommended. Every session felt like building a case against me. Every word I said seemed to be twisted into evidence of my instability. I should have seen it then. Should have recognized the trap closing around me. But I was tired. So desperately tired. Back in that boardroom, holding those papers, I felt my world tilting sideways. 23 years of marriage dissolved in legal jargon. My CEO position terminated effective immediately. My life's work, packaged and ready to be handed to Ezekiel with Tyler as his successor. "This is insane," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You can't just take my company." "Your company." Ezekiel laughed, actually laughed. "Baby, check the corporate filings. I restructured us as a partnership 5 years ago, remember? You signed off on it. Those documents you never read because you were too busy with creative." "Yeah. I own 50%. With the board's vote and documented evidence of your erratic behavior, this is perfectly legal." My hands went numb. 5 years ago, when Mama Sterling died and I was drowning in grief, Ezekiel had put a stack of papers in front of me. "Just estate planning stuff, baby. Sign here, here, and here." I'd trusted him. After everything, I'd still trusted him. "The erratic behavior is fabricated," I managed. Tyler slid a folder across the table. "Screaming at assistants. Inappropriate spending. Missing board meetings. Refusing medical evaluation. It's all documented, Mother. We're trying to help you before you destroy everything you built." I opened the folder with shaking hands. Photos of me looking exhausted, disheveled, captions calling me unstable. Records of meetings I'd supposedly missed, meetings I'd never been told about. Testimony from employees I'd never met claiming I'd verbally abused them. It was all lies. Manufactured, calculated lies. "You're trying to steal my company," I said flatly. "My life's work. On my birthday." Ezekiel stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Sign the papers, Victoria. Make this easy. We'll give you a generous severance. You can retire, rest, get the help you need. Fight us, and we'll drag you through court. Destroy your reputation. Turn you into a cautionary tale." Simone finally looked at me, her eyes hard. "It's over, Mother. Accept it with dignity." Dignity. They wanted me to accept robbery with dignity. I stood slowly, carefully, placing both hands flat on my table. My table. Get out of my boardroom. They didn't leave. Instead, Ezekiel nodded to security I'd hired, and 2 guards stepped forward like I was the intruder in my own building. Ms. Sterling, we need you to vacate the premises, one of them said, not meeting my eyes. Johnson, you've worked here for 8 years, I said quietly. I gave you time off when your mother had surgery. Paid for it. You're really doing this? His jaw tightened, but he didn't move. Orders were orders, and Ezekiel signed the paychecks now, apparently. I gathered my dignity like armor. I'll leave. But this isn't over. Yes, Victoria, it is. Ezekiel's voice followed me to the door. You should have stayed in your lane. Content creation, community outreach, that soft stuff you're good at. But you wanted to play CEO. Now you're learning what happens when you're out of your depth. I turned back, and for the first time in years, I really looked at my husband. Saw him clearly. The weak man who'd attached himself to my strength. The parasite who'd fed on my success until he'd grown confident enough to try devouring the host. I was never out of my depth, Ezekiel. I was just surrounded by sharks pretending to be family. Walking out of that building felt like dying. My heels clicked against marble floors I'd chosen. Past artwork I'd commissioned from local black artists. Through a lobby that displayed photos of community events I'd sponsored for 20 years. The receptionist wouldn't look at me. Neither would the staff I'd mentored, promoted, believed in. Ezekiel had poisoned them all against me, slowly, methodically, while I'd been too focused on building to notice the demolition happening from within. My driver, my personal driver, was gone. My car, too. The parking space with my name had been emptied. Even my nameplate had been removed from the building's directory already. Like I'd never existed. I stood on the sidewalk in my outdated navy suit, clutching a box of personal items someone had hastily packed, and felt something shift inside me. Something fundamental and irreversible. They'd taken everything. My company. My family. My identity. Everything except the one thing they'd never even known existed. I took an Uber to a storage facility across town. The driver kept trying to make conversation, but I couldn't speak. My throat was tight with rage so pure it felt like swallowing glass. Unit 247. I'd rented it 15 years ago, paid the fees from a separate account Ezekiel didn't know about. My grandmother used to say, "Baby girl, always keep something for yourself. Something they can't take, can't touch, can't even know exists." Inside were bankers' boxes. 15 years of documentation. Every contract, every filing, every single piece of paper that had ever crossed my desk. I'd made copies of everything because I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to trust my life's work to memory or digital files that could be deleted. I pulled out the incorporation documents. Sterling Media Group, founded by Victoria Marie Sterling. Sole proprietor. My signature, my vision, my sweat and blood made solid in legal language. Then I found the partnership documents Ezekiel claimed gave him 50% ownership. I'd reviewed them after Mama Sterling's funeral, once the grief fog lifted. Had them examined by my own attorney, not the firm Ezekiel used. Not the lawyer he'd insisted we hire. The restructuring was fraud. Ezekiel had forged my signature on half the documents and manipulated others. The witnesses listed weren't even present when I'd supposedly signed. I'd documented everything, built an ironclad case, then buried it here, waiting. Waiting for what? I'd asked myself then. Waiting for this. For the moment Ezekiel's greed would finally exceed his caution. For him to overplay his hand so badly that even his own arrogance couldn't save him. I pulled out my phone, my personal phone, not the company one they'd already shut off, and made a call. Lewis and Associates. This is Victoria Sterling. I need to speak with Patricia Lewis. Tell her it's time. Patricia Lewis was a lioness in a courtroom. I'd hired her 3 years ago after the therapy sessions Ezekiel arranged started feeling like traps. She'd investigated quietly, carefully, building a case while I pretended to be the confused, overwhelmed wife Ezekiel wanted me to be. "Victoria, honey, I've been waiting for your call." Her voice was warm but fierce. "Where are you?" Storage unit. I have everything. All of it. Good. Don't go home. Ezekiel will have changed the locks by now. That's my house. I bought it. Actually, no. Remember when he refinanced 2 years ago? That paperwork you signed? He transferred the deed to his name only. The house, the vacation property, even the cars. He's been systematically moving assets for 3 years. But he was sloppy, and we caught it all. I closed my eyes, leaning against the cold metal wall. Every signature he'd pushed in front of me during dinner. Every just sign here, baby, it's boring financial stuff moment. Every time I'd trusted him because he was supposed to be my partner, my husband, the father of my children. What do we do? My voice cracked. We destroy him. Legally, thoroughly, and publicly. You still own Sterling Media Group, Victoria. Ezekiel's partnership claim is fraud. We can prove it. The board meeting today. Illegal. His removal of you as CEO. Illegal. Every decision made in that boardroom is invalid. But here's what makes this beautiful, they don't know that yet. A smile crept across my face. The first genuine smile in months. How long do we have? 48 hours before they file the official paperwork with the state. After that, unwinding it gets complicated. We need to move fast. I'm filing an emergency injunction tonight, freezing all corporate decisions. By morning, we'll have Ezekiel, Tyler, Simone, and every board member who participated in this coup served with papers. Federal fraud charges, Victoria. Criminal charges. This isn't just divorce court, this is go to prison territory. The kids. My voice wavered. Your children are adults who conspired to defraud you. I know it hurts, but Tyler and Simone made their choice. She was right. They'd made their choice, and it wasn't me. Do it. File everything. Patricia moved like a hurricane. By dawn, federal marshals were at Sterling Media Group with seizure orders. By 8 a.m., the story had broken. Major news outlets running headlines about the CEO who'd been illegally ousted from her own company in an elaborate fraud scheme. I showed up at the building at 9 a.m., walking through those glass doors with Patricia beside me and 2 FBI agents flanking us. The lobby had gone dead silent. Staff members who'd ignored me yesterday now stared with dropped jaws. Ezekiel was in my office, the CEO suite I'd designed 10 years ago. He looked up as I walked in, and the color drained from his face. Victoria. What are you, security? Security works for me, Ezekiel. They always did. You're fired. You can't, I'm a partner. No, you're a fraud. I dropped the file on the desk. Forged signatures. Falsified documents. Embezzlement. Conspiracy. The FBI is very interested in your creative accounting over the past 5 years. So is the IRS. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. You crazy bitch, you can't prove. I can prove everything. Every signature you forged. Every dollar you embezzled. Every lie you told. I've been documenting your crimes for 3 years, Ezekiel. Every single one. Tyler burst in then, Simone right behind him. Both froze when they saw the federal agents. Mom. What's happening? What's happening, Tyler? Is you're learning a lesson about underestimating people? Did you really think I built a multimillion-dollar empire by being stupid? That I survived 25 years of your father's undermining by being weak? This is insane, Simone hissed. You're having some kind of breakdown. I'm having a reckoning. There's a difference. I turned to Patricia. Show them. She pulled out documents, spreading them across the desk. Forged incorporation papers. Fraudulent partnership agreements. Systematic embezzlement totaling $4.3 million over 5 years. Wire fraud. Tax fraud. And my personal favorite, conspiracy to commit fraud involving 6 board members, 2 attorneys, and your husband's entire executive team. We were protecting the company from her instability. Tyler shouted. There was no instability. Just 3 years of manufactured evidence for a hostile takeover. We have testimony from employees Ezekiel bribed to lie. Emails detailing the entire conspiracy. You're all going to prison. Watching them understand what I'd done, what they'd walked into, was better than any therapy session. Ezekiel's face went from red to white to grey. Simone started crying, mascara running down her designer cheeks. Tyler just stood there, his mouth opening and closing, all his arrogance evaporating like morning dew. "Mom, please," Simone finally whispered. "We're family." That word. Family. It felt like a blade between my ribs. Family doesn't forge documents to steal what you built. Family doesn't mock and undermine and gaslight you for years. Family doesn't serve you with divorce papers on your birthday as a distraction while committing corporate fraud. My voice was steady, cold. You stopped being my family the moment you chose greed over love. Ezekiel found his voice, that smooth lawyer tone that had once charmed me. "Victoria, baby, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Think about the kids. The kids are grown adults who made adult choices. They'll face adult consequences." "I'll lose everything," he said, and for the first time, I heard genuine fear. "Yes, you will. Your reputation, your freedom, your Mercedes, the house you stole from me, every single thing you took while pretending to be my partner. I'm taking it all back. With interest." The federal agents stepped forward. "Ezekiel Sterling, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." The Miranda rights sounded like poetry. Beautiful, vengeful poetry. They cuffed him right there in my office. Tyler and Simone weren't arrested yet. Patricia had advised giving them one chance to flip on Ezekiel and the board members in exchange for reduced charges. I wondered if they'd take it, if they'd betray their father as thoroughly as they'd betrayed me. Probably. They'd learned from the best, after all. As they led Ezekiel out, he turned back, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger or hatred. Recognition. Like he was finally seeing me for the first time in 23 years. "You were always stronger than me," he said quietly. "I hated you for it. I know. That's why I stayed ready." The news cycle was relentless. Media mogul exposes husband's fraud became the story of the month. Think pieces about women in business, about family betrayal, about the dangers of complacency. Every channel, every website, every social media platform had an opinion about my life. The staff at Sterling Media Group approached me cautiously at first. But I'd always treated people with respect, even when I was being undermined from within. They remembered. Loyalty is earned through years of consistent character, and I'd banked enough goodwill to weather this storm. The board members who'd conspired with Ezekiel resigned immediately, hoping to avoid charges. Patricia filed anyway. No mercy for traitors. Tyler and Simone took a plea deal. Testified against Ezekiel in exchange for probation and restitution. I watched from the gallery as my children described their father's manipulation, how he'd poisoned them against me slowly over years, how he'd convinced them I was the enemy when all I'd ever been was their provider, their protector, their mother. The judge gave Ezekiel 15 years. Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, tax evasion. The charges stacked up like bricks building a prison cell I'd mortared with evidence and sealed with righteous fury. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt hollowed out. Empty where my family used to live inside my chest. But I had something they could never take back. My name. My company. My legacy. Sterling Media Group thrived under my undisputed leadership. I promoted people who'd stayed loyal, hired fresh talent, and refocused our mission on community service and authentic storytelling. Within 6 months, our ratings hit record highs. Advertisers came crawling back. We expanded into podcasting, streaming, digital content, all the things Tyler had suggested but couldn't execute because vision without integrity is just theft waiting to happen. I was interviewed by every major publication. They wanted to know my secret, how I'd survived the betrayal, how I'd planned my counterattack so perfectly. The truth. I'd never stopped being the girl who worked 3 jobs while pregnant. I'd never stopped being hungry. Never stopped protecting what I'd built with bleeding hands and sleepless nights. You don't survive poverty and single motherhood and systemic racism by being soft. You survive by being steel wrapped in silk. By smiling while you document everything. By playing the long game when short-sighted people think you're too broken to fight back. Ezekiel thought he'd married a weak woman he could control. Tyler and Simone thought they had a pushover mother who'd accept their disrespect forever. They were wrong. They just didn't realize it until the cage door locked behind them. I stand in my office now, looking at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. 43 years old, divorced, estranged from my children, but undeniably, irrevocably free. Sterling Media Group is worth $23 million. I've established a foundation for young Black entrepreneurs, specifically single mothers who need seed money and mentorship. I teach them what my grandmother taught me: trust your vision, document everything, and never let anyone convince you that your strength is too much. Tyler and Simone write sometimes. Letters from people who are strangers wearing my children's faces, asking for forgiveness they haven't earned. They want reconciliation without accountability. They want me to forget because they've been punished enough. Maybe someday. Maybe when they understand that betrayal isn't healed by time, it's healed by transformation. When they stop being their father's children and become their own people, people worthy of the name Sterling, maybe then we'll talk. Ezekiel will be released when he's 62. I'll be 57, probably running a media empire worth triple what it is now. He'll come out to a world that's moved on without him, a name that's synonymous with fraud and greed. He'll die knowing he could have had everything, a partner, a fortune, a legacy, but chose theft instead. Chose ego over love. Chose to tear down rather than build up. There's a photo on my desk. Me at 19, 7 months pregnant, standing in front of that dying radio station with the keys in my hand. My face is young, scared, determined. That girl didn't know she'd spend the next 23 years fighting to keep what she built. Didn't know her own family would become her greatest enemy. But she knew how to survive. And survival, I've learned, is just another word for winning. They wanted to bury me on my birthday, but they forgot something crucial. I've been digging myself out of graves since I was 17 years old. This was just another hole. Except this time, I didn't climb out alone. I buried them in it. My name is Victoria Sterling. I'm 43 years old. And this is what happens when you mistake silence for weakness, patience for stupidity, and grace for surrender. I am the empire they tried to steal. I am the storm they didn't see coming. I am every single mother who's been underestimated, every wife who's been gaslit, every woman who's been told to smile while being robbed. And I'm just getting started. Remember this: silence doesn't mean you're beaten. It means you're loading. If you've been betrayed by family, undermined by people you trusted, or told you're too much while they take everything, document it. Build your case. Stay ready. Because the best revenge isn't just success. It's proving you were never the problem. They were just too weak to stand next to your strength. Subscribe for more stories about justice, resilience, and what happens when underdogs stop playing nice. Because sometimes, the only way through hell is with receipts and a federal prosecutor.